Good afternoon, everyone. We will start in 2 minutes. Hello, everyone, and welcome to SCORE Fairfield County's webinar on conflict management at work. I'm Peter Talion, the workshop coordinator and a business mentor here at SCORE Fairfield County, and I'll be your host. Our speaker today is Ivonne Zucco. More on our speaker in just a moment. First, some brief information on SCORE. SCORE is a national organization with 230 offices, approximately 10,000 volunteers nationally. We are part of the Small Business Administration. In Fairfield County, SCORE has over 100 volunteers with a wide range of industry, process, and subject matter expertise. We offer 3 primary value-added services to small business owners. Number 1, free one-on-one counseling, which can be accessed via the Request Mentor link on our website or via the link on the screen. Number 2, educational in-person workshops and live webinars, such as today's, about 100 a year. And very extensive resources on our website, including a network of subject matter experts at your disposal. Some useful information about today's event. If you have a question, please use the chat window at any time during the presentation. It is located in the lower part of your screen. You may also use the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen, and we will pause periodically to take your questions. Our workshop will end at 1 p.m. to respect your time. The session is being recorded, and the link to the recording will be available at fairfieldcounty.score.org within the next couple of days. Now I'm very pleased to talk about our speaker today. Ivonne's mission is to support individuals and companies in their development efforts and help unlock the potential everyone has within. As a people and culture consultant, she works with individuals searching for fulfillment and balance in their careers, and with companies working towards intentional cultural change by using a pragmatic approach to help them advance from where they are to where they want to be with clarity and purpose. This webinar today is the 4th in a series that Ivonne has presented to SCORE audiences over the last several weeks, and we strongly encourage you to go back and listen to some of her prior presentations, which are all available on recorded versions at scorefairfieldcounty.org. With that as introduction, I'll now turn it over to you, Ivonne. It's all yours.
Thank you so much, Peter, and thank you for having me again. I'd like to thank the audience for being here and taking their time to learn a little bit about managing conflict. Like I was saying before to you, Peter, this is one of my favorite subjects to teach about because I do quite a bit of mediation and conflict management within my work. So it's something that I feel very inspired about. I really do believe that better communication will lead to less conflict. So hopefully today you will learn a few good tips around how to manage conflict and how to prevent it as well. One note I wanted to add, I usually do this presentation on conflict management at work, but a couple of webinars ago, we had a participant specifically asking about how to manage conflict with customers. So I added a part at the end to talk about the customer experience, conflict management, and customer service. Hopefully it will help you out also. So I think that most people are uncomfortable with conflict. Every time I do the webinar or the seminar live, most people raise their hands saying that conflict is not something that they want to go through. And this is because conflict can become very, very emotional. So it's a highly emotional kind of situation, and it's hard for people to deal with that. And you will learn the reasons why it's really difficult. But conflict is unavoidable. It is part of our everyday lives. And I think personally that conflict has a bad rep because really when we have healthy conflict happening, it is not a bad thing to have. It actually is a stimulates creativity, problem solution, decision making. When employees engage in conflict, when they don't agree in something and they find better solutions, what happens is that better ideas come up and people really get to grow from the experience, right? The difficult part is when unhealthy conflict happens. Unhealthy conflict is unnecessary. It lowers morale, it lowers productivity, and it creates tension with people. So ideally, what we will learn today about is if you have conflict already, the bad kind of conflict happening, how are you going to manage it? But also, how do you prevent conflict from happening in the first place? The bad kind of conflict, because we want the good conflict that help us regulate things, make sure that everybody is staying accountable for what they need, and just basically going over what needs to be done in business, which is discussing things. So let's talk first about the sources of conflicts, because there is two of them. And we tend to think about conflict about like an interpersonal thing, but also there are organizational issues that may cause conflict. So there is the organizational part, and then there is the interpersonal. Both of them need to be taken care of. I like to say, usually when I do these workshops, is that the only agency we really have to change things is ourselves. So when we think about conflict and difficult situations, we tend to be blaming things on other people, on leadership or whatever there is. But if we don't take the first step to resolve this conflict, things will never change, because we cannot, for the most part, change other people. People do change, but not necessarily what we want them to change. They change what they feel is best for them. So very briefly, organizational conflict. What does it look like? If you have weak workplace systems and processes and structures, if people don't understand well what their job looks like and what they are supposed to do and what steps to take when something is happening, there will most likely be conflict in the workplace. Also, if you have poorly defined roles in your job, that's a source of conflict. Sometimes the hierarchies in the organization are not effective, or there is lack of accountability. Another source of conflict that is organizational is competition for resources. So if people are having to deal with situations in which there is not enough resources within the department or the area that they work, there will be conflict with other areas at the same time. So those are the kind of things that are organizational. And if when conflict is happening at work, you can pinpoint at processes that are not working well, you have kind of half of the battle already won, right? Because if it's processes, that's something that can be fixed. It is easier to take a look at and say, well, how are we doing this? And what needs to be fixed? What is it that we are missing? The most difficult one to manage is the interpersonal conflict, because now we are talking about people and their own way to perceive lives, perceive things, and communicate. So when you think about interpersonal conflict, one thing that you have to be, mindful of is that each person comes to work and to the workplace with a different kind of mindset and different background. and we tend to see life through the glasses that we wear. Basically, if I have a situation in which, for example, I have been um, part of a family that is very, very critical, right? They always want more from me and so on. I have grown with a sensitivity to that. And I will come into the workplace and sometimes perceive certain things that are not meant to be as critical as criticisms of myself. For example, if I have grown into a family and my way to reacting to whatever criticisms there is just to comply and be humble, that's the kind of personality I'm gonna have. So when you think about it, you have a ton of people with different backgrounds, different histories, different ways of learning things that come together to a workplace, and everybody has to get along and do work together. That is not easy. So when you think about interpersonal conflicts, here are the main sources of these kind of conflicts. One of them is miscommunication and misunderstandings. I have to say that most of the time, probably 60% of the time, I do work with intervention and mediation. Generally, there is a situation in which people have understood what has been said incorrectly, or things have been said in a way that weren't perceived the way the speaker wanted to. So I said it differently than what intended. And so there is a lot of misunderstandings that result from that, and things are not fixed. Nobody works on them. And then it starts creating feelings of, I'm not appreciated and so on. But I have to say, many of the times when I work with people, the thing I hear the most is I didn't intend to say that when I say those words. The other piece is different viewpoints, perspectives, opinions, and preferences. That has to do a lot with what kind of values we carry and what do we think is our role and our way to see life. So we are working, like I said before, with different people that have different ways of seeing things. Also, the similar personalities and communication styles. People tend to communicate differently. I'm sure you encounter in your workplace or in your businesses people that are very use passive aggressive kind of conversation, other people that are very direct, other people that are very, very submissive. And so all these personalities can clash because the communication styles tend to be different. Also cultural differences. And this is something I always like to talk about because not every culture expresses themselves well. And I really like to make an emphasis on that part, right? For example, I'm of a Latino background. We tend to be a little bit more talkative and a little more loud. And for example, people that are Italian as well, they speak a little bit more louder. And the fact that we are speaking on a higher tone doesn't mean that we are angry or that we are having, a hard time, reaching an agreement. It's just that culturally we are more used to talking like that. Even between countries that are of the same language speaking, there are cultural differences. I have to say, like, for example, I'm South America. And in South America, we tend to be more assertive about the way we talk. We are more direct. But if you speak with people from Central America, they have a way or style of talking that is more soft. So my style may be interpreted by them as rude. And that's why we have to keep an eye on cultural differences as well. Also, there are unintentional mistakes. People make mistakes at work, and that may cause other consequences for other people in the workplace. And with these mistakes happen, of course, there may be some sort of conflict resulting from, the what happens after the mistake is made, the consequences of the mistake. Many times we feel offended or disrespected. This goes back to the way we communicate and the way we perceive communication from other people. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, that people don't mean to disrespect you. It happens in the workplace. But many times also there is a situation in which we feel that we have been offended or disrespected, and the person didn't mean it that way. So therefore, clarification is really, really important. So the most common causes of miscommunication are, first, not listening carefully. So when somebody speaks about something, right, you are now paying 100% of attention to what they are saying, and there may be a misunderstanding on what is being said. Also, when you are speaking, there may be some lack of clarity before you speak. So, for example, if you haven't prepared for a conversation or you are saying things by the way, as we walk through the kitchen or the aisle, oh, by the way, I want to tell you these things. If you are not providing a very clear kind of communication, miscommunication may happen as well. Sometimes people catch you off guard and you are not prepared to have a conversation. On those times, right, it's good to ask for time off and say, can I come back to you with an answer? When people are going through something, they want to run an idea for you, or they just had some sort of situation with another coworker and they're feeling highly emotional, they feel like they need to vent and they need to get an answer and they need to know right away the answer. It's perfectly okay to have, ask for time to get back to that person and not speaking without being unprepared, because that can happen and cause a lot of miscommunication. Also, misinterpreting messages, expectations or assumptions. This is a one that I want to emphasize a lot, because when we have assumptions on how somebody's going to act, or we have certain expectations on somebody is going to have, we are going to look to reconfirm our previous assumptions of a person. And that makes communication very difficult, because if I have already an idea of who you are and how you're going to react, it is just very, very hard to try to look for proof that what I was thinking about is true. And last but not least, and this is the biggest one, is judgment. And I want to stop for a second here and talk about judgment, because it's also one of those words that have a bad reputation. But I do believe that judgment is normal. When we navigate our lives and we try to figure out how to go about our day, our brain is finding shortcuts all day long to kind of look for patterns that look in a certain way that help us make decisions faster. Making decisions is one of the most difficult and brain-consuming energy situations we have in life every day. Making decisions make us tired a lot, because we are using a lot of our brain energy in it. So what our brain does is to come up with judgments or ideas of what we think things should be like based on our experiences in the past. But what's the problem with that? Judgments do not always apply to situations. So if I have ideas about how certain people act or how some people behave, this is not going to help me resolve the issue that is happening, because I already have a preconceived idea of who they are. Now, moving away from judgment is difficult. It's not easy. Like I said before, this is something that our brains does automatically. So I'm going to teach you what's the best tool to kind of work with that automatic response of your brain. It's called active listening. So 80% of good communication really lies on active listening. We tend to think about communication about us talking and talking and talking, but really the most effective way to have effective communication is really listening attentively to what the other person is saying and speak less. So what does active listening look like? First, it is not about listening to respond. It is about listening to understand and learn. I'm going to repeat that. Active listening is not listening to respond, which is what we are used to, right? We feel like we have to have that answer right away. It is a way of listening in which you try to understand and learn from the other person about what is happening. Our culture teaches that we have to be very witty. We always have to have an answer. And so we emulate that kind of behavior since we are kids, right? It's on TV, it's everywhere, right? The person that is very clever and has an answer before we didn't even finish our sentence. That's great for entertainment, but it's not a great way to communicate, really. And so silence is good. And it's a good thing to hold. You don't have to always be talking, always responding, always be ready, always to have the answer. Quite the opposite. Understanding and learning from a person can be the best way that you can listen to someone and communicate with someone. So when you do use active listening, you validate what the other person is saying. In other words, you confirm that you heard correctly. And if you can, you summarize what is expected. For example, if I have someone that says, Ivonne, please bring the notepads because we are going to have a meeting at 2 p.m. And, I need to have everything organized before people come. A good way to validate and confirm what the other person is saying is, for example, say, okay, so you have your meeting at 2, you want to have everything organized, and just to make sure I understand correctly, you want the notepads? Do you want them on the desk, or do you want them to, you want me to give them to you? Do you need pens also? What do you want me to do next? Right? So that's kind of listening attentively, repeating what the other person said, and then summarize. So I understand that what I heard is exactly what the other person intended to say. If I heard incorrectly, the other person is just going to clarify. And if the other person spoke incorrectly, the other person is also going to clarify. So when we validate someone, we are also giving them the opportunity to hear back what they say to us, right? And on top of that, clarify and give you more instructions or give you more feedback about what is happening, okay? Also, another way to listen actively is to ask questions. Use curiosity to stay attentive. And this is kind of a very important point when it comes to avoiding judgment. When you ask questions, what happens that instead of you thinking about what you're going to say next, you will be more likely to be engaged and listen to that person because you want to hear what they answer, what is that their response is. So when you use curiosity and really pay attention to what the person is saying and look for something to ask them to get more information, you will be able to communicate in a way that the person first knows that you heard them, and also the person feels like you care about what you are saying, what they said, and also you will have clarification and will engage in conversation better. Also, you will stay away from judging, making assumptions, right? Thinking that you know already what this person is going to say next, because they surprise you. And then, at the end of the conversation, again, summarize next steps when it's applicable. So active listening is not easy, but it's doable. And how do you get better at active listening? By practicing it the more you can. So now I do have a question for the audience. So Peter, I'm going to ask for your help. I'd like you guys to put in the chat for me, what do you think are the barriers that keep you from listening effectively? So if you want to send a few notes on the chat and tell me what is it that you feel is more challenging about effectively listening to people. I love to see your comments.
Okay, we'll keep an eye out for it, and we'll pass them along to you in just a moment.
Awesome.
Let's get started. Some of the answers are rushing, trying to win rather than being in the moment. Distraction, prejudgment, past experience with some of the coworkers, lack of sleep, lack of focus, cultural and linguistic meanings, when someone is rambling on.
Yeah, those are like really things that I think everybody can relate to. I love the answer of the person that said that if they're tired, they haven't slept well, it's really hard to listen as well, right? So those are the times in which you can ask for a time off and say, can you give me a few minutes to process this because I'm not hearing very well. Anything else that came up, Peter?
I think you covered it.
Yeah. So, all the things that you're mentioning are things that we continue to learn throughout these PowerPoints. And luckily, this presentation is going to be available to you so you can review again because it is a lot of information. But if you try to use active listening, I assure you that a lot of the things and the barriers that you are having at the moment, you will be able to get through. One of the times they said previous experience with other coworkers, even in our partnerships, right? In our relationships with people. If we have previous experiences and we are using those previous experiences as a base to evaluate what they're saying, inevitably we will be thinking and listening to the responses in a way that is leading. It's not necessarily an independent way. One of the things that is very, very important to know about conflict is that conflict triggers emotions. And emotions can be hard to handle, even though like some of us like to believe that there is no emotions associated with our behavior or the way we interact. They are part of our everyday life. We are always having emotions and we are always reacting. And also it is a natural state for the body to come up with emotions when we hear things, right? So what happens is when it matters the most, right? When we are trying to manage conflict, we do our worst. I got this from the book called Crucial Conversations, and that book is specifically about communications and misunderstandings. And this is what the author says in the book. He says that we as human beings are designed wrong, and that emotions do not prepare us to converse effectively. Why? Because our genetics have shaped us to fly, fight, or freeze. So, as our all human brains that haven't evolved as much as society has evolved, what happens is when we perceive danger, right? Our emotions arise and get our body ready to have one of these three responses. You either fly, freezing, you fight, or you freeze. And what happens there is that the adrenaline is pumped into our bloodstream and your brain pumps more blood to your large muscles to run or fight. And the reasoning parts of our brain get less blood. So what happens is that we can't think very clearly because we are not getting enough oxygen in our brains, because our emotions are getting us ready to run away from the tiger. When in reality, we are not running away from our predator. What we are doing is really reacting emotionally about something that was said. And as you can imagine, because human interactions work that way, we mirror our feelings. When a person is feeling emotional, immediately the other person can feel that emotion as well, and they get emotional. And so now a whole conversation that could have gone in a different way is based on emotions that people are having a hard time controlling. That's why taking time out is a good idea. And that's why, breathing is a good idea as well, so that we can bring some self-regulation to our bodies. And we can address that more when we do the Q&A, if you like, because there is so much about this subject that is hard to put in 1 hour. But here are other communication best practices. One, if afterward you need to clarify, circle back with people. Circle back is a term that was coined by Brené Brown, if you're familiar with her. It's basically when you have a conversation with somebody and you don't feel like you got clarification, or you felt like something was said that really wasn't comfortable with you, you have to give yourself the opportunity to go back to that person and say, hey, can we talk about what happened today before lunch when, when I said that I needed to take a break and you, make a remark regarding me taking a break? I'd like to clarify what you meant. Many times what the person meant was said in a way that was felt for us in a certain way, and then they didn't mean it that way. If they meant it that way, it gives the opportunity to say to the person, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. I just said it carelessly. And you can have a conversation beginning from that. It's always important to circle back. Don't leave things like, waiting there thinking that they're going to go away on its own. That rarely ever happens. Like I said before, be mindful of the culture. Again, in some cultures, like our Western culture, when we speak with people, right? And I'm gonna go also to mention the body language part. It's a sign of sincerity to look at each other uh, in the eyes when we are talking, right? We look at each other's eyes and we are demonstrating that we are sincere. In other cultures, that's disrespectful. And people, to show the respect, don't look at you directly on the eye. So if we are making interpretations about how that person is behaving based on what our culture looks like, especially now that we have such a diversity in the country and everywhere in the world, like mobilization of humans has been, at its highest in the last, 50 years. Now that we are so different and we come from so many different cultures, this is more important than ever to keep an eye on. Also, don't be the tone police. Like I said before, many times we are watching for people's tones, see what they are saying, but in reality, many of us speak differently, right? We have different way to communicate. So sometimes the tone that you are interpreting as rude may not mean to be rude to that person. Listen to the other person's feelings and avoid interruptions when you are talking. I'm going to talk about feelings for a little bit, I think in the next slide, but one of the things that I wanted to ask you next is to share in the chat strategies that you use already that help you be a better listener. So Peter, if you can help me again, and let's see what people are using and doing. One
I'll
of the
be
things
happy.
I love about, go ahead.
I'll be happy to. Let's give them
Yeah.
a chance to
One of the
write
things
in.
that I love about doing workshops, Peter, is that I do learn a lot from the audience. And every time I do a new presentation, I incorporate a lot of the things that people are sharing. So it is great when you, the audience, are able to share your own thoughts. So what is it that people are sharing, Peter? Is there anything there that is better strategies for being a better listener?
Ask probing questions to create deeper understanding. Show
Uh-huh.
repeating back what I've heard and asking if it is correct in what was meant.
Uh-huh. That's awesome. So a lot of people are already using those tools that we have been talking about. And the more you do it, the more you practice it, the better you get at it. So that's super, super essential. So thank you so much for sharing. We can go back to more answers if we have any at the end of the presentation, because I want to make sure I will address everything that we set ourselves to do. But I have a few principles to observe when resolving conflict, the do's and the don'ts, what to do and what not to do. And I have them mixed up because it's just, they flow better. First, when there is conflict, tackle issues early, especially if you are a manager and you know that there is conflict going in your organization or your business. And if you're the business owner too, and you have a few people that are working with you, if you're working with your family members, if you're working with your friends, make sure when an issue arises, you talk about it early. Most of the time, when I'm being brought into a conversation to do mediation, a lot has happened. And it's really hard to undo things that could have been resolved early on. So please keep an eye on that. Don't be afraid to tackle issues. It is okay. That's what we are here working together for. Keep an eye on your own judgments, which is something I mentioned already. Don't take things personally. That's another point that I want to, normalize for you. Taking things personally for me is kind of a protective system we have in our bodies, right? We want to just make sure that we are protecting ourselves and our body reacts in a way with feelings. So it is natural to take things personally. The important thing is to detect it and be able to say, well, maybe I should take a look at this more globally as opposed of me being kind of the main victim of the situation. Avoid making assumptions and focus on the content instead of how it makes you feel. So here's where I want to do a clarification regarding feelings. When you are in a situation that is difficult and there's conflict arising, normally you will have feelings. Those feelings are something that you want to keep an eye on, because those feelings are going to, lead the way you are going to respond. So you want to make sure that those feelings are being keep in check, and they are not affecting your thinking or your judgment at that moment. Yet, when you are hearing someone else, it is good to focus on how the other person feels. Not because their feelings may be accurate, it's because by understanding how they're feeling, you can know how to manage the conversation as you move forward in it, right? And for people and for us, it's very important to feel our feelings acknowledged. That we are angry, that we are like having a hard time, that makes us sad. All those things are important, right? So that's something to keep an eye on, and make sure you keep your feelings in check and you acknowledge what the other person's feelings are, or you ask them, how are they feeling at the moment? Because that's going to help you manage the situation better. Other things that are important is to avoid interrupting others, avoid shutting down ideas, avoid that we always have done it this way, avoid jumping into solutions, and avoid aggressive statements and name calling. The last one may seem obvious, but sometimes we don't realize that we do it. Like things that could be like a name calling kind of situation, or aggressive statements. For example, just get the work done. That is silly or stupid. You are working too slow. That's not a smart idea. How many times do I have to tell you the same thing, right? How dumb is that? Or using the word crazy in any way. That's not a good way to communicate. What is a good way to communicate is to try to say less again and listen more, and avoid making those judgments and coming up with these statements that may seem very natural in the way we communicate, because that's how our society really works, and that's why we have so many issues in the planet. But it's not the best way to work with other people. So last but not least, being assertive is a good idea. Good ways to be assertive is just give people a clear direction. This needs to be done by 5 p.m. on Friday. Or for example, that's different than what I expected to hear. Can you tell me more about it? Or give me examples of how that idea will work. Those are ways of using the same ideas we have, but putting them in a way that makes them more easy to digest for the other person, and really being assertive and providing more guidance when you are talking. So what are the main communications issues in an organization? Like generally, gossip and rumors. We all know that's a big one. Indirect communication. What indirect communication means is going around the person you really need to talk to resolve the problem. And that can lead to gossip too, right? Asking permission from someone who is more likely to say yes, but does not have the authority to do so. That can be like huge communication issues if you're going and asking for permission to someone that does not have the authority to make the decision. Not saying what you really mean. So basically, it's talking around the issue and possibly hinting at what you want to say, but not saying exactly what you really mean. Telling other people to communicate the message for you versus talking to the end recipient yourself. Giving softer messages, hoping that the recipient will read along the lines. This can cause very, very big communication issues. And here is, and using nonverbal communication cues instead, right? Walking around, not looking at the person, giving them the silent treatment. That's not a good way of communication. Just hoping that the person is going to guess what you're really angry about or what the real issue is. So one of the things I do want to address, though, because we can ignore that, sometimes at work we have those people that are troublemakers. It is the toxic coworker. Now, the toxic coworker is that person whose behaviors add negativity and upset your life. Many times, people who are toxic are dealing with their own traumas in an unhealthy way. So they usually present things in a way that are upset others, and this gives them power to really that power that they lack internally, or other or power that they don't have in other areas of their lives. So it is very important that when you know that there is someone that tends to have a toxic way of communicating, right? It's always talking bad about other people. It's always criticizing. It's never looking for solutions. It's always looking for the problem. You detect that early. And for managers and business owners, I know so many times we need those people because they have, a talent. They do their job well. But I have to tell you, if you keep toxic people in your work, it's going to only hurt the organization. And in the long run, you are going to end up having more losses than what you win with a person being very effective. You will have other employees leaving, you will have a toxic organization, and you will have a lot of unresolved issues that you're going to be constantly have to deal with. So keep an eye on the people that really need to do more work inside themselves in order to be better co-workers, because their behavior tends to be toxic. Try to work and turn around toxic employees. It's really, really, really hard. So what to do as an organization? Inside your organization, inside your business, inside your workplace. First, commit to communicate directly with the person that you should. Okay, don't go around asking other people, telling your coworker what your issue is, because your coworker is not going to be able to resolve your problem. The only person that is going to be able to resolve your problem is your manager or the person you had the issue with. Go through the proper channels of authority. Be upfront about the situation and accept whatever responsibility you may have. I have to just say, usually situations are not caused by only one person, unless it's a toxic employee, right? But normally we do have a part, something that we may have done that contribute to the lack of communication and the conflict that we are going through. So we want to be able to accept what kind of responsibility we have in this game. Do not talk through others, right? And avoid accepting the messenger role for someone else. So if somebody comes to you and says, I have this issue, can you help me with that? Encourage that person to take care of their issue themselves. If you want, you can go with them to human resources or to your boss or whoever it is, or your family member that you are having, an issue with. But do not get involved in being the messenger for someone else. This is not good practice to have in general. And raise your concerns to leadership if you have any. And talking about concerns, one of the things that I have learned recently is that there are 5 core concerns that everybody has that are important to acknowledge. And these 5 concerns are something like to think about deeply, because everyone that is trying to resolve a conflict is trying to resolve these core concerns that I'm going to name right now. So these are 5 fundamental interests that triggers any issue. One is autonomy. Each person has the desire to make their own choices and control their own fate. The next one is appreciation. People feel that they need to be recognized and valued. People have that desire internally. The next one is affiliation. People need to feel that they belong somewhere and they are accepted by members of some peer group. The role. The desire is to feel that they have a meaningful purpose within the organization that they are, within the group that they are. And last but not least is the status. It's the desire to feel fairly seen and acknowledged. If you want to read more about that, the book that came from is Getting to Yes, which is a book by Roger Fisher and William Ury. It's on page 32. And it talks about when you are trying to resolve conflict, you are going to always see that underlying these conflicts, there is one of these issues that are triggering people, right? I'm feeling disrespected. Where is my status there, right? My role is not respected, right? I'm feeling that, that people don't appreciate my work. I have the need to feel affiliated and have the desire to belong to a group. So if I feel that I'm being left out, of course I'm going to feel bad. and so on. If I feel not appreciated for my work, well, are my efforts being recognized and valued, and so on. So underlying any issue that you may have, there is these 5 fundamental core concerns that people have. So that's important to keep an eye on. So what I want to do last before moving into questions is to talk about applying what we just learned, right, into customer service and customer conflict. One thing to keep in mind again, active listening. When you are able to resolve a conflict with a client, or you have something going on with a client or someone or a customer, active listening is your best tool. And active listening does not have a location in the conversation. It's practiced throughout the conversation, right? When you are trying to resolve their issue, you are always using the validation, confirming that you heard correctly, you summarize what is expected, ask questions, you use curiosity to stay attentive. And then when the conversation is finished, you want to make sure that you summarize the next steps when it's applicable. So active listening is something that I encourage you all to use in life every day. Like I said before, if we are not used to listening that way, it's something that we can practice little by little. It's not something that you have to change from one day to the next, but practice makes perfect. And the more you practice it, the easier it's going to be for you. Also, I have a few principles on customer service that can help you resolve issues with clients and customers. First, try to have act quickly when a customer concern is raised. Try to have as immediate response as possible. If you have an online business, try to be attentive to send your answer to that customer. If you have a store and the person is coming in with a request, don't make them wait for 20 minutes. Try to act as quickly as possible and dedicate the resources to the concerns that they may have at that point, right? Even if you have to step away from the cashier and put somebody else in there, make sure that that person is being heard quickly. The next thing is try to be non-judgmental and try not to blame the customers for what is happening or judge customers. And here I want to make a stop and talk about labeling people. We all know that there are customers that are difficult. We all know that sometimes there are customers that are trying to get the upper hand by returning an item that we see really that there wasn't anything wrong with it, but they just want to, satisfy getting their money back or whatever it is. Yes, there are those customers out there. There's people that are naturally difficult. But for your own benefit, try to avoid labeling people. Because as soon as you avoid, as soon as you label someone, you have already lost half of the battle. Because you are going to concentrate all the conversation that you have based on that assumption that you have about that person. So here comes the difficult lady again, right? It's not going to serve you better to resolve that conflict. You can, over time, work on your own ways of, getting rid of customers that are not really easy to deal with and make you use more time that you're really getting paid for. And there are ways to go around that. But in the meantime, if you can try to avoid putting a label on a person, it will help you have a better communication when you are trying to resolve their problem. Also, use empathy when listening. Ensure that your customers feel heard and understood before responding. Many times when people come and they're angry or they are, anxious about something, they come with the need of venting and saying everything that is happening. If you give them the space to kind of let go and tell you everything that is happening and kind of ensure that they understand that you're hearing them through active listening, they'll be more likely to kind of like try to accommodate to what is happening. I think that most of us experience that when we repeat things over and over again, it's because we don't hear that we're being heard. We don't feel like people are paying attention to us. We feel like people are dismissing us. So we feel like we have to say the same thing over and over again. If your customer that is coming with a complaint feels like you're hearing them, they will be more likely to let go and go through the venting and be okay later. Also, make sure that you use clear communication with your client. Be clear about how you can help them, and outline the necessary steps for the problem resolution. So if the answer is not necessarily in your hands, let's say you have a product that you have to talk to a different company for, let them know in advance, okay, so we're going to try to resolve this. This is what I can do for you. And if this doesn't work, these are the other steps that we're going to have to take to resolve your issue. Make sure you keep professional boundaries. Always keep your professionality. That way you will avoid and try to prevent abuse from angry customers, right? So we set the tone. And understanding, focus in, so aim to understand what people are saying, and then apologize if it's needed. Now, most places that you go to and you say customer service, apologize, even if the customer is not right. You don't necessarily have to apologize to customers. And one of the things that I want to mention is that not apologies don't work the same way for everybody. There is a book called The 5 Languages of Forgiveness, I think is the name. And it means that different people do receive apologies in different ways. For some people, it is okay to, hear from the other person that they are sorry about what happened. For other people, it's more effective to know that the behavior is going to be changed, that the person tells you how they're going to resolve the problem. So for some people, if you say you're sorry about something, it means nothing. So when you do active listening, you can start feeling, right? When you ask questions, you can start feeling what is the appropriate way to hear that person, and apologize if it's needed in a way that is, appropriate for you as well. Also, identifying the main concerns, find what are the main issues for the customer, seek solutions, and engage, look for insights and solutions, and engage your customer in helping you find those solutions. Demonstrate flexibility, be adaptable in providing solutions. Inform the client if you're going to need to escalate or transfer their need if it's necessary, and let them know about what the progress is. Also follow up and check in after a resolution to ensure that they have reached satisfaction and that they can thank and make sure that you thank your customers. So we are approaching the 10-minute mark. I had really an example of what this could look like. So I'm going to run it real quick before we move into the questions and answers, because I feel that it's always necessary to explain how it works. So here is an example. A client comes to your natural skincare product store, and she's upset because the lotion that she brought from you has given her a rash in her body. She's having an allergic reaction. Of course, because you know your products, probably your first reaction is going to be, this person is overreacting. My products are good. I know that my products are not giving her this rash. They're all hypoallergenic. And I will tell her that, if she doesn't like the product, she can return it. But at the same time, I know that she's wrong. Another way to confront this situation could be that instead of having all those situations and trying to resolve the problem quickly, you listen attentively to what she's telling you and ask her a few questions. For example, you can say things like, when did the rash first appear? In what area of your body is the rash? When did you apply the lotion first, and when did you start getting the allergic reactions? So by asking these questions, you are demonstrating genuine interest on what is going on with the issue, and also serves to gather facts about things that can inform what is going to be your next step. You can tell her also that you're sorry that this is happening and that you're going to do whatever you can to help her. Now, notice that in that sentence, I said, I'm sorry this is happening. I'm not admitting that my lotion necessarily gave her the rash. What I'm saying is that I'm sorry that this person is going through this situation. That immediately is going to make your customer feel better. And then you can ask them, what is the major concern right now? Now, you will think that the major concern of the person may be the fact that they have the rash, right? But if you investigate a little more and ask more questions, you may have finding out that this lady has an important event and she has a dress that she's going to wear that is going to expose the area of the skin that has the rash. And she's really worried that she's going to change plans last minute and get a different dress, or that her rash is going to look very bad at this event. So once you notice what the circumstances that she's going through and what she's feeling, you can start looking for solutions that can help this person resolve it. Maybe you have a product in the store that you can try and you can test together for 2 hours to see if it's going to help her. But in any way, the thing here is that, and the main goal here is just to let that customer know that you understand that concern, and that your products have excellent results, and that you are willing to find a solution with them that really fits what her main concern is, which is not really the rash at the moment, because people that have skin issues have rash all the time, right? It's that the fact that she has to wear this dress and she needs to find a solution for the skin situation that is happening now at this moment. So that's kind of an example of how you can use, this kind of communication. Asking questions always helps more. You may find out information that you didn't really have readily, and you will get rid of assumptions you made about the customer, and you might be able to communicate better and find a good resolution for everybody. So I went on a little too long, but I don't know if you guys have any questions. Peter, we have, I think, 6 minutes to answer questions.
Yep, we do. So thank you very much for the presentation. We'll take a couple of questions before we bring it to a close. A question: How do you address power imbalances at work?
Oh, that's such a good question. Actually, I was talking to my group on my mediation class I was taking yesterday, and we were talking exactly about power imbalances. And the first thing is to acknowledge that there is a power imbalance. And, when you are expressing your concern about a communication that may have happened with somebody that has more power than you, you can definitely say, listen, I'm concerned about bringing this issue because you are in a position that can really affect the way my work is being performed. And just naming it, right, may help that person realize the power they have over you and their decisions and the way they are communicating over your, how comfortable you feel at work. So I would say that definitely talk about it. I'm sure that people tend to be a lot more open when they hear that they have power as well. And sometimes those people can use their power to help you out. Like, for example, as an HR consultant, I have a lot of power. And so I tell people, come to me and talk to me. Because if you don't feel heard, right, I can help you feel heard. Because I have, this position in in my role as a consultant, that I can bring issues back without the fear of making changes in your work like you will have. So I said, when there is power issues, if you are able to address them, try to do that.
Very, very good. Well, I think we've gone through the questions. One final comment looks like the customer service principles are also very appropriate for dealing with employees who many times are our customers.
Absolutely, that's a great observation. And I have to say, these principles are applicable to every part of your life. They apply with your partners, they apply with your kids if you have any, they apply with your family members. Anywhere you go, you can apply these principles in communicating better with other people.
Well, thank you very much, Ivonne. As a reminder, a recording of this webinar and any materials will be available within a couple of days on the fairfieldcounty.score.org website. Please check our website, fairfieldcounty.score.org, for information on upcoming webinars. Again, SCORE offers free individual counseling, so please use the link on the screen or visit our website and click Request a Mentor. We are available for sessions via phone, email, or video. You will be sent an evaluation at the end of this webinar, and we take those evaluations very seriously. Please send a response. And on behalf of SCORE, I'd like to thank you for attending today's SCORE Live workshop. A big thank you to you, Ivonne, and have a great day, everyone else.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for your kind notes on the chat. And Norma is asking, because she came in later, if we recorded this webinar. And yes, you will get the link to the recording, so you will have access to it. Thank you so much, everybody.